Hey, good afternoon. We're going to have a little different setting today. Our friend Andrew is out, and so we've invited Mr. Brian Burge to come on with us today and have a conversation with me on how to farm an area or a community. So today, that's going to be kind of the topic. We're going to stick to our prospecting and what we've been talking about, but we're going to specifically spend about 20 minutes here talking about how do you farm a neighborhood or how do you farm an area. So let's first define what farming is. It's concentrating your efforts on a single area. It's just like if you're trying to grow wheat. You pick a specific part, geographic area, you plant it, you nurture it, you water it, you do the things that you have to do to make sure that it becomes healthy and abundant, right? And so
Yep.
farming in real estate is exactly the same thing. You're going to pick a specific area or neighborhood, or even a niche. If there's a certain type of home or price range of home, that could be your farm, but you got to pick the right place and the right way to go about it. You might even pick your own neighborhood. I highly recommend you do if you make that decision. One of the things I'm going to ask Brian a couple questions here in just a second, but one of the things I want you guys to think about is when you're picking an area to farm, don't pick the area based upon just you think those prices of those homes are the best ones you want to sell. You got to go do some research. You got to find out, has that area in the last 12 months had any turnover whatsoever? If it hasn't had any turnover whatsoever, why in the world would you spend your money in there? And
Absolutely.
Brian, I mean, what's your opinion of that?
So I tend to look at it in a lot of the same direction. I tend to call it something different. I
Okay.
always think that farming is planting seeds, right?
Yeah.
Whereas, in my opinion, let's go fishing. Let's go for very distinct what we're trying to get, right?
Yeah.
If we go after the opportunity and we put the right lure for anybody that fishes, a wrong lure can literally keep you dry the rest of the day, whereas a
Okay.
correct lure could keep you abundant with fish. Um,
Absolutely.
so, and the concept comes down to this is if we focus on what avenues will be beneficial to that person in that area. Yeah, because you're right. Some people just want to go after this neighborhood, but they don't look at the fact that a house only turns over every 6 months in that neighborhood. Well,
Right.
guess what? That's not a good neighborhood to work on because there won't be enough equity. There won't be enough avenues to build up value. So, doing your research in advance to know where you're trying to farm or fish is ideal.
Absolutely. And so, as you're going through that and you're trying to decide, where would you go find the stats that you're looking for to make an educated decision on where to spend your money?
Absolutely. So start your place in the easiest environment that we can work in, and that is MLS. Identify what our average day on market is for that area. Um, if you work in either of the markets that both of me and Kent are, and we have a relationship working, then have a discussion with us about some additional opportunities. There are some great tools and resources out there that can add value to that, and that's the key is start with what you have, which is MLS, and then find avenues to grow that if you want to get more robust on it. I have a neighborhood that I've adopted, and I call it adopted. I've taken on the neighborhood. I have two neighborhoods that I will calculate somewhere to the tune of 30% of every listing that comes out of those neighborhoods.
Interesting.
How? It takes time. It's not an immediate response. Um, but we do things that are very proactive in owning those neighborhoods. We adopt every abandoned buyer. We introduce ourselves. We do direct mail to those neighborhoods. We use what's called every door direct because
Mhm.
that is usually mail routed,
Right.
every one of those. So it's a huge opportunity and it's a growth pattern that you can own as little or as much as you want of that neighborhood.
So, how often would you? What your? I mean, give me just an idea of how much, how many times are you going to mail to that neighborhood? What is the
Yeah.
frequency of the activities you're doing? Is what I guess I'm
So
asking you.
we have gotten to a frequency of almost monthly. So we're hitting them on a monthly basis. We have an email database, we have a mail database. We also do periodic walking of that neighborhood. So we're going to walk that neighborhood for things like, hey, we go out on a national National Fire
No.
Safety Month, and we'll offer batteries to everybody in the neighborhood. But we don't stop there. We
Right.
offer the battery, right? A 9-volt battery, because nobody has 9-volt batteries. We offer the battery, and then we come back to the neighborhood the
Right.
next day and say, listen, we would love to schedule, or excuse me, we do this in the same time. So we hand the battery over, we schedule a contractor for the rest of the next day to come out and install those batteries because
Oh, wow. That's
batteries
cool.
are on the roof. Yeah. So this
Yeah.
gives us a couple different things. Great way to access a phone number because,
Right.
hey, we're going to confirm the appointment, make sure that you're still there and that the contractor can come by.
Right.
Two, it usually will allow us to identify, and this is the key, right? Scripting. Great. You know what? Can I see the locations to see what kind of ladder he needs to make sure he brings to the location? You get to go in, see the property. Wow, that's an amazing this, or that's an amazing that. Gives you
Wow.
some intrigue on the conversation. So it's a great dialogue builder. It adds value. And the cost, listen, to buy enough batteries for an entire subdivision, you're probably going to spend about $200.
Right.
To hire a contractor, you're probably going to spend about $1,000. So it's a
Right.
significant expense,
Right.
but for a total of $1,500, you have the opportunity that you could be in anywhere from upwards of 20 to 30 houses in that neighborhood. Think
Interesting.
about that for a second.
Yeah.
It's a massive take. Mix that into when we send mailers, we're not sending mailers about things that are things like what's going on in the neighborhood. That's a piece of our mailer, but
Right.
most of it is leading with value. We offer, what to do, when to do, how to do, things that are going on in the area. Um, it's pure value. Like we're trying just to simply add value. So um, we do things like we adopt the local schools as well. So say
Mm-hmm.
this area is like one of our subdivisions that we work on is a larger neighborhood. So we'll take that neighborhood and we go to the local schools, usually elementary, past
Right.
elementary, sometimes middle, but usually elementary is the best way to put it.
Right.
Elementary teachers are very invested in their kids, and they
Right.
usually are the same elementary teacher for the entire school day, which
Right.
means they're communicating with parents on a regular basis. So if you are proactive with them, you have amazement of how much value they'll give back. For instance, one of our neighborhoods, we bought the entire school. So there was, and this is school, so not just the teachers, but the staff as well. So the entire staff and faculty and staff, I guess is the correct term for that.
Mhm.
We bought them all t-shirts. So this
Oh,
cost
wow.
us, it was significant because we buy nice t-shirts. We don't buy t-shirts that they're not going to use, but we
Right.
found out that every Friday they can wear a t-shirt if it's a school spirited t-shirt.
Ah.
So we give them a nice t-shirt, has our logo on the back of the t-shirt, okay? Has the logo of the school on the front. We
Right.
gave the entire school a t-shirt. And guess what? Now we have a literal t-shirt that everybody wears because all the other t-shirts that they get from staff and everything else, it's usually
Right.
those cotton t-shirts that nobody likes to wear. Whereas
Right.
we give them a nice tri blend that they
Right.
wear all the time, right? Um, but now I've created value. And you'd be amazed that you sponsor the things at the schools, right? They have a movie night, you sponsor the popcorn. They have a movie most elementaries will have things like trunk and treat. You sponsor that.
Right.
Small expenses, but guess what? Most of the kids in the neighborhood that you're farming or you're fishing go to
Right.
that school.
Right.
So, hey, guess what? You know who first calls usually are? Hey, our kids are moving out. Is there anything I need to do to scale them down?
Mm.
Right? Who gets that phone call? The administration of that school. Well,
Right.
guess what? Hey, you know what? If they ask a question or they need help, I want to be top of mind. That's the
Right.
key.
So tell
So,
me, so everything you do has your brand on it, obviously. So you're branding Brian Birds in every
mhm,
way, shape, or form. So,
correct.
talk a little bit about how important it is if you're going to spend this time and this money to go do these things, that brand is recognizable, for lack of a
Yeah.
better term.
Yeah. It is emphatically important. And this is the advent and the change of the brokerage model. The brokerage model in general has changed to the fact that self branding is key and is a big awareness. We need to be conscientious of it and make sure that it's present. Now, we have to fall. follow rules, right? Because rules are important, and they can get you in trouble and set you up for failure in the long run. So make sure you're following the rules, but also make sure you're self-branding. Create a brand for yourself, because the only way to create value is to have a brand for yourself. So everything. I mean, yeah, you need to have all the correct disclosures and everything else, but keep those as small as you possibly can, and make sure your brand is the awareness.
Right. So tell me this, and just little simple things like, do you have your team and your stuff? Do you put car signs on your car when you're in these neighborhoods?
So we have trucks that have my face plastered all over the top of it. So I guess the answer is yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So I have a whole fleet of vehicles. We
Yeah.
are in the process of purchasing our third vehicle that, yeah, has the entire my face, all the branding that is also on our billboards, all the branding that's on our, and we
Right.
tend to use a very focused branding. We are trying to make sure that we have as much relevance as possible, for sure.
Right. And I guess what I'm trying to get to is that as a newer agent that's, just kind of learning how to market and learning how to spend the limited amount of money they have to spend, what are what, in your opinion, the smart
Yeah.
things?
So day one, they don't need to spend a penny. They can go. They can. Most brokerages might allow this, but at the end of the day, they can go down to Kinko's and buy 35 copies, 100 copies, whatever amount that they want to walk, and they just start knocking on doors. Introduction, right? The MLS. You put on every sale that happens in your neighborhood. When it happens, the next day, go over, knock, knock, knock. Hey, Kent, how you doing? I just am the local neighborhood ambassador, and I just want to say congratulations on your new home. And if you need anything, please never hesitate.
Right.
Right? I didn't say I'm a realtor. I said I'm the local neighborhood ambassador. Right?
Right.
And say, hey, great. Did your kids already get enrolled in school? I have a great relationship at the school. I'd love to get you acquainted with whoever.
Right.
Misty, the front desk girl at the school, and say, hey, listen, I can get you connected with Misty tomorrow, and you guys can get all enrolled and everything like that. Right
Right. So,
now,
so what I hear you saying is that everything we do, no matter whether we call it sphere of influence or we're just really trying to figure out a way to meet another person and build another relationship.
and that's it. This is all about that relationship based conversation, because these people are not going to select you because you give them the data of the neighborhood every time. Let me scale back a little bit. They may, but very rarely is that going to be in abundance. They may, one or two people may do that. Um, it's simple stuff. So we send out a little, and I wish I had a good share screen, but I had some technical difficulties beforehand. But I send out a magnet about this big, um, and I pick up local restaurants for that magnet, right? So the little mom and pop shop down the street that everybody knows and goes to, right? I put that one in the system. Okay. So when I go to their house and I see a magnet on the wall, on the fridge, and that makes sense. That makes sense, right? Um, and now magnets are expensive. So remember, if you're a brand new agent, yeah, don't buy a magnet today, right? Or even better, get the local restaurants to pay for the magnet. Say, hey,
Right.
listen, I'd love to put you on my magnet. This is going to cost, the magnet's going to cost $50 or $100 or $500, whatever it is.
Right.
Split that cost. Don't make money on it. Split
Right.
it even. Hey, they're going to have 10 restaurants on here. You want $50? I'll just deliver them, hand personally deliver to each of the people. Guys, think about it. That's a zero expense if you've offset it with them.
Right.
You've put a branded item in front of them.
Right.
It's RESPA compliant because you split the cost evenly.
Right.
Makes sense. And what you've identified is now you have a literal magnet sitting on their fridge that has all the local numbers, put on things like poison control, put on things like the local hospitals, put in anything that, think about what you would want to call in your neighborhood, right?
Right.
And that's what you're looking for. Um,
Absolutely.
add a value to that, right? With the new advent of QR codes, I went one step further. So I put a QR code on there that allows them to download all those contacts that are on that list into their phone.
Oh, wow.
Mysteriously, there's one extra contact, or it's on the list as well, but it happens to be mine, right?
Right. Yeah. Man, that's good stuff, and that's the kind of stuff new agents need to learn. You know, I think they get so much stuff thrown at them all the time and they're trying to make a decision on what to do and where to get started and how to get started. And you know, I guess I'm asking, what is what's your advice? What would you say if I was going to go tomorrow? I'm brand new. You know, what's the first thing I need to do to get ready to go out and find me a deal? And what is a reasonable amount of time for me to get that deal into place?
Okay. Know your neighborhood. If we're talking 100 houses, this is why you need to know if they turn over pretty well. If there's 100 houses, you're limiting your opportunities. Now, if there's 1,000 houses, well, 1,000 houses is a like great opportunity, right? 1,000 houses, there's probably 4 or 5 sales going on as we speak.
Mm-hmm.
So you walk 1,000 houses and just knock on the door, leave your card, leave your information, right? So you need 1,000 business cards. That's going to cost you $100, $200, whatever that's going to cost you. 1,000 business cards. That's all you need. And then
Right.
you need an afternoon. Go
Right.
knock on every door, leave your business card, right? One time does not work, but it sometimes does, right? Let's say that you get a conversation going and you say, hey, listen, that's awesome. But 3 houses down, you talk to the renter that wants to move into the neighborhood. Guess what? Put them together, right? And they now become your first double-sided transaction. Now,
Yeah.
I will caveat that by the fact that I don't like double-sided transactions. I always say refer out the buyer, but nonetheless, you've created the value, right?
Right.
Um, and that could happen, and it may not. But
Right.
guess what? If you do it the first month, make sure you do it. I mean, think about it. What is walking 1,000 houses? How much time does that do? I did a lot of political campaigning over years.
Right.
1,000 houses is not as much as you might expect in time allotment because 1,000 houses may not be that big of a deal. And let's do it smart too. Okay. So, in perspective, and once again, I can't share my screen, but in perspective, if you have a program, and I believe both of the MLSs that both me and Kent are in have Remine in their
Yes.
MLS opportunity.
Right.
Remine gives you a functionality that says the probability based on 17 meters of public information of this person moving. If you don't want to walk the 1,000, I understand. Some people are just not that, they're not built that way. That's
Mm-hmm.
okay. Stop by the 35 houses that have a probability over 50%.
Right.
Guess what? Those are going to be huge for you. And like I said, adopt the neighborhood,
Right.
adopt the abandoned buyers. 99.9% of real estate agents do not take care of their clients after they close.
Right. Well, that's
Adopt them, adopt them. And you will be amazed at what value that brings because guess what people do when they buy houses? They talk to other people about them buying their house.
right.
And if you adopt that buyer and they had a bad relationship with the person they actually bought it with, and you've adopted them, you've taken care of them, and you made sure that they got introduced to the Misty, the secretary down at the school, and guess what? Hey, Kent, I bought a house. Or hey, Kent, you bought a house. I understand it. You know, how did it go? And you're like, hey, my agent sucked. But this
Yeah.
agent that helped me afterwards, they
Right.
were amazing.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. And you know, the thing I think they forget too is that, you know, the person that becomes your friend or becomes somebody in that neighborhood that becomes your advocate doesn't really always have to be somebody that sold a home. They know they have friends that would like to live in their neighborhood because people like it, right?
Yeah.
And they become some of the best advocates in the world, and you've never done a transaction with them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You don't have to sell anybody a house to get them to refer you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You just simply have to provide value.
Absolutely. Well, we're getting down to that wire here. So, Brian, just in final, do you have any final words of wisdom for our guys here to kind of wrap this thing up?
Absolutely. If you don't do it, nothing's going to come from it. If you
Absolutely.
don't take the time and energy to actually research, to ask questions, to say, hey, Brian, hey, Kent, I need help with this. I will sit down and I will have you bring a Zoom screen on and we'll go through your MLS individually. And I'll tell you, hey, this is a great neighborhood or that's a horrible neighborhood.
Right.
Listen, if you go into an area that the houses only turn over every 6 or 7 years, that's not a neighborhood you want to play with.
No.
Why? Because it's going to cost you 7 years of investment to get $1. Well, that doesn't make any sense. Now, granted, it's not true 7 years, but 7 years to get another investment in that tool. But you'll be surprised. There's some great neighborhoods that turn over regularly, 3-ish, 2-ish years on a regular basis, and they have great opportunity. One of the neighborhoods that we have, average turnover is 2.5 years.
Wow.
Average day on market is 42.
Wow.
Okay. And 42 days on, and that's not considering that's over those 2-year span. That's not like right now. Like right now, I'd assume it's like -3 weeks, but nonetheless, in a normal market. Remember, always don't use future market. Use today market, or you don't rephrase it. Don't use what the market is today because today's not reasonable. Use what the functional would be when it's back to normal.
Oh, great.
So,
guys, that's the one thing I always tell you, and I know Brian's heard me say it a million times. If you're just persistent and consistent over time, this all works out for you. But that consistency is critical, guys. So, man, Brian, thank you so much for sitting in with us today. We really enjoyed it. I always enjoy having conversations with you about this. So, with that being said, guys, get out there and go to work, and we'll see you next week.
And I'm going to leave it with one last thing. So Kent's daughter's great about this. They set up great events. Think about it this way. If you own the neighborhood and there's a great park in the neighborhood, you can rent out an ice cream truck for half a day for about $500-$600.
Yeah.
Or you can, whatever, you can work out whatever deal you want to do. Have it sit there, go around, walk the neighborhood on a Saturday and say on Sunday, we're going to have free ice cream at the park. I'll have a bounce house. Have your disclosures, have your stuff put together. I'll have a bounce house, come and hang out at the park. Free ice cream, right? You'll be amazed how many people show up. So little things like, you can do everything. And we did one where we did like a spring fling. And we did a full myriad of things. Now that was a lot more setup, a lot more cost. It was offset by vendors, but you can go as far as you want with it.
Yeah.
Or
just in the very beginning, as a new guy, spending $300, $400 on ice cream or snow cone truck, guys, the best $300 you'll ever spend.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. Sorry.
No,
I go on for hours. If you ever have any questions, guys, reach out. I'm 100%. You can find Kent on social media. You can find me on social media, or you can give me a call. My number is 915-256-6989.
And mine's 214-325-6931 or Kent@kentbush.com.
Easy money. Thanks,
All right, guys. Great week. Let's go make some money.
See you later.
All right.